All right, our next chapter, chapter 9. This is our longest chapter that we'll have in this course. It's on budgeting, so we're going to be making budgets. The handouts that I have given to you basically are the problems we'll be covering in class. There is 2 packets. The one with problem 73 is one I would like you to use as your template for the group project. The group project, and I'm going to hand this rubric page out, is problem 66 in our textbook. I'm just going to hand the groups out now. Chris, Michaela is your partner. She's online normally. Carla and Liz, you're group 2. Sandy and Eric are group 3. Eric's online. Say hi, Sandy. Eric, Sandy says hi. Group 4 is Brianna, Allison, and Sydney. You are a group of 3. And the group of 3 has an extra requirement, an extra worksheet, and that's contained on the back. Olivia, Miley is your partner, and she is usually online also, and I don't see her here either yet. So what I would like to do is basically show you in Blackboard how, if your partner is not here or if you are on spring break or whatever, not that I'm saying you have to work on this during spring break, but if you want to communicate with your partner, the best way will be to go into Blackboard, and there is a group tab right on the left side here. So you just click on that group icon, and then obviously I have access to all groups, but your group would be there by yourself. So what can you do between group members is you can do a file exchange, because you are going to be creating an Excel file. Worksheets or a series of worksheets. Problem 73 will give you the templates of what those worksheets should look like. I would like each budget, there's a sales budget, a production budget, a materials budget, to be on a separate worksheet. So we'll cover the requirements as we go through problem 73. But in addition to the file exchange, there is a send email option also, where you can send an email to your partner and attach the file that way as well. Very similar to what you guys did in cost, but this, because of the number of worksheets, I think there is a total of 8. It does take some time. It's not anything hard. There's no VLOOKUPs. There's no if statements. It's just multiplication and rounding, adding, subtracting, that kind of basic Excel work. With budgets, the big thing I look at is formatting. Do you have it titled? Is it formatted nice? Are the numbers in alignment? That sort of thing. Kind of similar to Ledger. Who had me in Ledger? Liz? So basically that format is what we're going to be using for this project as well. If you want to add some color, that's always very nice. That kind of thing. Any questions so far?
So every gray heading that you have on here is a different page or a different sheet?
Yes, every report or budget will be on a separate worksheet. And then you'll link those worksheets together through a cell reference. You know, equal, grab the number, bring it into the next worksheet. All right, so we'll address the rubric as we get into actually making or creating our budgets. The big thing is formatting. There's not a lot of points to this. 7 for the Excel portion. For the amount of work, it's probably a little light. But again, it gives us good practice to work with Excel. The workbook will then be submitted through Blackboard. So I'm going to go back to the class materials section. If you want, the due date for the project is April 2nd. So it's basically a week after we get back. So again, that's more than enough time to complete the project. But after you and your partner have it completed, there are 2 links in Blackboard to upload the assignment. There's one for the actual Excel workbook. That's what I'm looking for. I'll grade from that. But in addition, you get to, at the end of the project, evaluate your peers and tell me, how did they participate? Did they respond to your emails? That sort of, did they contribute? There's a small Excel worksheet. You just basically upload that worksheet, enter 0, 1, whatever, and then submit it through the link again. There's also an evaluation of yourself in this peer review. So sometimes students say, why is there 2 here? I'm only 1. So, it's on a quarter point scale. But basically on the bottom, there's 1 for yourself. There's 1 for each member then of your group. So evaluate yourself. In a lot of cases, students evaluate themselves harder than their partner does. But basically what I'll do is to get an average between the 2 scores. 3 is the most that you can get. Again, not a lot of points, but just to address any concerns. Because I will talk to the individual if there is a problem. Because remember, when you leave here, right, you're going to have to work with others, and it's important that you communicate adequately with that person. One of the biggest concerns, and I'm not sure why that says 47. It is, what, 66. One of my biggest concerns that I do see from a lot of students is lack of email response. So if you do send out an email, be courteous, or if you do receive an email from a partner, be courteous and respond, hey, I haven't gotten to it, give me so many days or whatever. So just don't leave them hanging there. Always respond as quickly as you can.
Are we just submitting 1 project?
Yes, your group then will submit 1 project. You will both, or there's 3 in a group, you will all get the same grade based on that 1 score. Now some students will say, I like to work on my own, I like to do my own project, and do the whole thing. Do all the budget reports, all 8 sheets. That's up to you. But communicate with your partner that you're doing that. Hopefully the goal is that you can make each other's worksheets better. Kind of. You know what I mean? It's not that, or you may decide, well, I'll do the first 4 worksheets or 5 worksheets. You do the last 4 or 5. You could split it up that way too if you wish to. But ideally, most students like to do their whole thing all and then communicate with each other as to how it looks and make them better. Any other questions? Now, as accountants, we're known not to work well with others. because we sit behind a screen a lot of times and not talk to anyone. So this is our attempt to show that you can work with others. And that's what this 3 points is for. Okay? All right. Any other questions on what we have here? Now, for those that are in the bigger group, you are going to do, instead of 1 cash budget, 2. So you're going to do 1 like C now wants you to do it. And then the extra sheet I gave to you, I will explain when you get that far. I will explain that the scenario changes. So you're going to have to create another worksheet with the new information in it. Just because you have 3 members instead of 2. It's great fun. I think you'll enjoy it. All right. We'll come back to this next when we meet again. It's funny, it's right here. That's good. Okay. For today then, I want to start this process of budgeting. And the reason, and this begins on page 457, the reason that we develop budgets is there is a control mechanism when we do so, right? You cannot control your operation until you have something to compare it to. So we're going to compare the budget to what actually happened, and that's the goal here. Many ways to do a formalized budget. A lot of banks also require that budgets be established. They wanted to see that you are able to plan the next year how you are going to be successful. Show them how you're going to be successful. Now, this control is looking backwards, because always, every year is different, so you have to learn how to budget. In a lot of cases, we just didn't do a very good job budgeting, right? So sometimes the budget number is wrong. It's not always that we failed to accomplish something. Well, maybe the number that we set for the goal is incorrect. So you're always constantly evaluating that budget for future purposes as well. Now, the budget basically is a communication. Determined by the company strategy. And the book talks about different strategies. And I can't seem to see it, so I'm just going to write it. Just as an example, a company's strategy might be, we're going to be the lowest cost for this particular item that we're making. Or we're going to have a higher cost, but we're going to sell on a better quality platform. Or maybe it's speed of delivery. We might be a little higher, but our delivery is not touched by any of our competitors. A strategy or a strategic plan is how do we compete in the marketplace. And this budget has to have that strategy in mind when we're creating it. So, here is our budgets. And again, there's a huge planning cycle in setting up the strategy. How do we compete? And then from that strategy, what are the objectives and plans to complete that process, to make it a full communication tool to all of our employees, exactly what we're going to accomplish in the next year, which would be a short term, maybe the next 5 years is our 5-year outlook, right? And come up with a budget plan, which is where the dollars come in. The budget plan is where the dollars come in. So we're converting that, all those words into numbers basically through the budget process. And obviously we're going to feedback and learn from our investigation when we compare our budget to actual, how we can always improve on our budget process. So that's the goal here. Many small companies don't budget, and why do you think that is? Anybody? Why do small companies normally don't budget or develop budgets?
Don't know how.
They don't know how is one reason. Don't have the time. And usually with small companies, one person runs the whole operation and it's all up in their head. But again, that's a problem when you have workers that are thinking something different, right? So this communication tool is very important for small companies as well as big ones. I can tell you I worked for a company for 13 years, never did a budget. I should have took this class. That would have been better. All right, so there are advantages. We talked about some of those. The big thing is planning and control, right? The master budget is discussed, and that's basically what we're going to create is a master budget. Starts on page 457. Typically, it's a 1-year plan. And then, a lot of times, the 1-year plan is broken down into months, smaller time frames, so that managers can set goals, right? It's hard to make improvements when you don't have a goal to shoot for. So some of these goals might be pretty hard to attain, some might be easier. But again, the set goals is important to keep everyone motivated. I have one company now, they have to, on their machines, looking for 20 hours a week production. So they have that as their goal, 20 hours a week. You got to be cutting 20 hours a week. Not a lot, there's 40 in a week, guys, right? So we're setting the bar pretty low, but right now they're not hitting it. But the goal is to get enough work to hit it. And that's, again, the hope here that we can watch that on a daily basis. Continuous budget. Please know this, what this means. It basically, you always have a 12-month budget in place. As 1 month expires, you budget for another month on the end, right? 1 month drops, we pick up another month and plan for that month. This is extremely hard to do because you're always in that budget process. But some companies do it. Next, who makes the plan? There's a budget committee. And a lot of times, it takes 4 to 5 months to get a budget developed for the next year. Lots of time is spent on that. So not only do we have to create the plan, we have to review it, approve it, which all takes time to do. And this is again why a lot of small companies, they don't have the resources to spend that amount of time or the personnel to do it. in a lot of cases. And then what does the controller do? They're usually the, do we have it here? You have to have a lead person on a budget, and that is the controller. Who is the controller, guys? For a company, what do they do? That will be your guys' job. What do you do when you get hired? You're going to be what? Why are you going to school here for accounting? What are you going to do when you get out of here? Do taxes? Not everyone. If you're going to be running a company, what are you being doing? You're going to be the controller, which is managing, you're controlling the money, assets of the company, right? That's your job. You are the one that's doing this head person leading this budget charge, right? It's got the word in it, control. And what I mean by control is manage and safeguard assets. That is your job. Now that means doing financial statements and all that other stuff too, but your job is to manage the assets, make sure that they're safeguarded. Not only the ones in the plant and equipment, that kind of asset, but dollars, right? Are you using the dollars appropriately to get to that, again, the goal that you set for yourselves? All right, the author, because the number of budgets we're going to do is quite vast, on page 458, the author splits the two into operating and financial. So I'm going to draw a line here. See if I can do this right. Basically, it comes up. The left side is operating budgets. The balance sheet, cash flow budget are the financial side. And this is all on page 458. Yeah, income statement falls under the operating. I think because of the fact that we're using the cost of goods sold, which is a operational cost, right? Cost per unit. But everything below that line is basically financial. The cash, the balance sheet, those are financial budgets. So in our chapter 9, guys, we're doing all of the operational budgets and some cash and balance sheet budgets. Those are the ones. We're not going to do statement of cash flows. We're going to do that in chapter 14. Budgeting is done in another chapter 13 or something like that. So we'll be covering those a little bit later. But everything else we're covering here in chapter 9. For your project, these are the worksheets you're going to have. So how many do we have here? I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Your project will also have a cash budget, which is 9. So we're going to cover all of these to complete your project. We'll basically do top down. So our first budget we're going to talk about today is our sales budget. Number 1, sales budget. Really easy budget, guys. The example is example 1 for a sales budget on page 460. even though it's simple in nature, because all you're doing is taking the units sold times the selling price. That's all it is. But it is the most important report. If you do not get this sales budget accurately, it makes all your other reports underneath it incorrect as well. So a lot of time is spent, again, on developing this budget. What is an accurate forecast for all of next year of our sales? And again, sales vary for a lot of companies. Some are really high in January, snow blowers. Some are really high in July, lawnmowers, you know, if you're making whatever you're making. Selling ice cream cones, you're making more in summer than you do in winter. So a lot of time is spent on developing these budgets for sales. So the example that we're selling t-shirts here, really simple. But I want to point out a couple things here. First off, this is a quarterly budget for the year. And I like this format. I want underlines before a subtotal. I want double underlines at the end of the report on all of your reports. Okay? If it is a unit, don't put a dollar sign on it, right? I want the dollar sign on financial numbers. Normally, the dollar sign goes on the subtotal, right? Also, for the year, which is a sum, on your Excel, I want you to use the auto sum as much as possible, right? I don't like cell C3 plus cell E3 plus cell F3 plus cell G3 when you're doing sums. It's redundant. So auto sum where we can. And also when we're multiplying, let's just assume this is B1 or B2, B3. That's horrible. Let's start over. B2, B3. My formula is whenever we multiply, round. I want to see the round command in it. Now, it wouldn't matter. These are all whole numbers. 10 times 1,000 is going to be 10,000. But that's not always going to be the case. So get in the habit of adding the round command. Now, if there is an occasion where we do have to show cents, then what do we round to?
2.
2. So whatever the look of the number is, that's what you're going to round to. So if you are showing cents anywhere on a budget, it's got to be rounded to 2. Bree, Anna.
For the yearly, like, total number, does it matter if we auto sum the bottom row or multiply the...
I would prefer if you multiply.
Okay.
You can auto sum the quantities for the units, that's fine, but I would like to see a multiplication here. Because why would you have this number there then, right?
Oh.
So use it, let's use it. Yeah. And it's a good self-check too, right? To make sure that your numbers across the come out the same. And everybody knows that if you highlight these numbers with Excel, it'll add them up for you. You can see this total on the bottom of the Excel worksheet. That way it'll check the 57,000 then. Excel is so fun. Let's try one. I'm only going to do one here. It's quick. Quick and painless. This is in our other packet, I think. It should be. first page.
The first page.
Another reason I do this first one, I like the formatting. This is what I'm looking for formatting on your project. Remember, your audience for these budgets are those in charge of your operation, right? Your sales department, VP of operation, maybe a banker might look at these for a loan proposal. So these have to look very nice. Add some color. Make sure the title of the report is on, right? Also be sure that this, whatever heading you have, fits centered on the report, right? Everybody catch that. This has got to be centered on your report. I don't want green lines coming way over to the right here, right? It makes it look unusual. Now, looking at this screen, you may be able to do a portrait, right? But if you feel that it should be landscaped, go ahead and landscape it. How does it fit on the page? Also, when you do a print setup, I want to see a horizontal center. Does everybody know what I mean by that? I want this report to print centered horizontally on the page. I don't want it shoved to one side. Do not do it centered vertically though, because then it looks like it's floating in air. I'm going to add this too to the report requirements. In the footer, I want a date. I don't have that on my rubric, but it has countlessly saved me many, many times when generating reports. What day did I run that? And did I have another version that came after and I didn't print it off? That has saved me countless times. So get in the habit of adding a footer with a date on it. All right. I'll think of more. Oh, and the year or the date range. I think we're for 66. Do I have a year? Does it show a year? Let me see here quick. No. So let's use 2019. For our problem, we will use 2019. Okay. So, going back to 50, really pretty simple. We'll just start with the numbers, the units. 800. Can someone tell me the total here?
13,200.
13.
200.
Now, I do want to see commas, right, in your number formats. It just makes it so much easier to read. So make commas on those numbers that need it. And then the unit price was
475.
a nice small number. 475. I'm just not going to write them all out. And then we simply multiply those two out. We're looking at no cents, so we're going to round these multiplications to 0, right, in our formula here. The subtotal will have a dollar sign on the number. You all have a 10 key tab that you can give me these 380,000. Can someone help me with the others?
1,045,000.
Good. Sydney, keep going.
2,660,000. And 2,185,000.
Awesome. I got smaller as I went across. And what's my final total?
6,270,000.
On your budget report, I want these numbers to align perfectly. So what I do for me, when I'm opening Excel here, for number formatting, and you don't have to follow me, I just threw some numbers here. I used the formats in the center here. So there's a comma format, remove the zeros for the cents because it's a whole unit. If it's a dollar sign I want, use the dollar sign format, again remove the zeros. You can see that the numbers on some occasions, I forgot the comma, right? So I know those are small. I want these numbers to align perfectly on the right side, right? Even if it's a dollar sign compared to a comma one, they have to align perfectly. And that's where these, the dollar and the comma, come in handy right there in the front face. Okay? Any question on the sales? Let's do one more sales, this time on problem 73. That's our example. So we're going to the other packet. This one we will complete entirely. This will help us to prepare for our project. Here we go. Optima. Author uses Schedule 1. Sales budget. Letter B of the problem has the information for the sales budget. So here again, it's a quarterly budget report with a total column. I'm just going to write down the numbers. Now these numbers that I'm putting in can be hand entered. You don't have to have like an input worksheet. You can hand enter these in. Unless you want an input worksheet, that's up to you, how you want to present it. And then the unit price is found somewhere.
400.
What letter, Liz?
Still in B.
Is it in B?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there it is. Okay, thank you. And then we simply multiply it out. So I got 160, 225, 300, 330,
Yeah, it's 300,000
300,000.
for the year.
that's 120 million for the year. I think,
Yeah.
right? Allison, do you have the other numbers?
Not yet.
I can do the middle one.
The 65, the first one is 26 million.
And I'm leaving out the dollar sign just because I don't have any space here. 28 million in period, so quarter 2,
30 million,
30 million in quarter 3,
36 million.
and 36 million in quarter 4. Comes out to 120 million dollars for the year is the budget requirement. Let's take this number then. We're going to cell reference this to where do you think we were going to go with this 120 million? Goes to what schedule in your packet? Packet 73.
Only the administrative expenses
Yeah, but I was more specifically, where does the,
or the income statement.
on the income statement, yes. So we're going to cell reference or put the 120 million on the income statement budget. And I'm afraid I don't have schedule, whatever, 9. So I'm going to put that in there. It's going to take me a little bit to find it, but I think I can find it. Oh, it was just one off. Here we go. Again, should be a dollar sign on the top number of a column, right? Dollar sign on the top number of the column. Everybody knows what I mean by cell reference? Okay. How about font size? What's the normal font size?
12.
12, right? So go with 12. If you feel that you like 14, great. I normally would not italicize the numbers, and I wouldn't color the red, blue, that's too distracting, right? So keep them all black. We'll go back to our sales budget. Now, we are going to reference these numbers, the units, and Liz already pointed that out, to some other reports or schedules. But let's just go down to our next requirement, Schedule 2. Which is our production budget here, guys. This report, obviously, it's got the word in it, tells our VP of Operations, and the production budget begins on page 461 of our book. Tells our VP of Operations what to plan for, what to make, right? It's purely a unit-based report. The goal of this report, how many units do we make to meet the sales expectations or budgets? Example 2 is the exercise or example in the book that shows us this. One of the things that's going to be introduced on this report is the company's expectation of ending inventory. If we're looking at units produced, what ending inventory are we looking at? What's the name of this account? The financial statement name. When they talk about ending inventory, what are we talking? Which inventory account? We got 3. We got raw materials, work in process, finished goods.
Finished goods.
Finished goods because we're selling them, right? We're going to sell our completed units. So in your exercises, when they talk about a percentage, and you're looking at this production report, make sure the percentage is for the finished goods inventory. There will also you be using the raw material, that's the other one, in some other report. So finished goods, budget 2. 20% of next quarter's sales is the desired ending inventory. So they do this nice cute little example. For quarter 1, we're going to take 20% of next quarter's sales, which is 1,200 units, and we get 240 as our desired ending. And so on and so forth. It's really pretty straightforward. Look at this. Would you look at this? The report has in it the 20% numbers, which is coming from next quarter sales. So 20% of 1,200 is 240. The 240 then becomes the beginning of the next quarter's column, right? So the 300 is 20% of 1,500, which then becomes the beginning in the next quarter's number. You will be using formulas then and cell referencing. I don't want entered numbers here, right? I want a cell reference to the prior quarter. Does that make sense for everyone? We get to the end. How do we get the 200 here? For the end of the year, it's the same number as the end of the quarter. So you're going to cell reference from the fourth quarter into the year column. Look at the beginning for the year. Our beginning is the first quarter, right? So we're going to cell reference from this field over here and bring it into here. What do you think? Does that make sense? This subtotal has to be a subtraction where the 5,900 is. 5,900 has to be a subtraction. How about addition? I just wanted to see if you were paying attention. You guys look very tired today. But the addition has to be these two, right? I'm adding those two together. If you take 1,240 plus 1,500 plus 1,900 plus 2,200, it does not equal 5,900. And the reason it doesn't is that these ending inventory levels don't make it available to do that. So make sure on that last 5,900 number that you are doing that subtotal with an addition. All right, let's try our problem 57. I'm not even going to do 51. Let's look at her. Back to problem optima. So this is a new worksheet, right? New worksheet for your project called a production report or production budget. It's up to you. You really don't need that Schedule 2 in there. I'm going to cell reference, right, the sale quantities. So where are they coming from?
Sales
Right.
budget.
From the sales budget. So equal sales budget, sell, whatever. So I'm going to have the same numbers, 65,000, 70, 75, Again, formatted nice. 300 for the total. Same as in schedule and the sales budget. Okay, here's our first look at this. Go to letter E. Oh, nope, sorry, wrong one. Oh, they give us letter C. Go to letter C. They actually give us the numbers. 13, 15, 20, and 10. Thank you. So if I look at first quarter, how do I get my total needs? Do we add or subtract? Add. Very good. I had a student subtract. That was a long test. Because again, it's one of the first ones that we do. If you don't do this right, it's wrong down. So we add these two numbers together. I'm going to do these in black. 78,000. I said black, not blue. 85, 95, 100. Okay, for the year column, what am I going to do?
10,000.
Very good, guys. I'm just taking a cell reference, automatically transferring that 10 over, and then we're coming up with a 310,000 quantity level as our total needs of production. Skip the first quarter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just take an arrow here. I'm going to bring these numbers down into the beginning inventory. Remember with beginning then, that's where we subtract to get the units produced. So 13, 15, and 20. The question is, how do I get the first quarter?
You gave it to 0.
It was 0. It was given to us at 0. If it's 0 in the beginning for the first quarter, it's also a cell reference as a beginning of 0 for the year. So the first quarter is the beginning of the year. So that is this one and the same number. So now we do our subtraction. Let me know if I subtract wrong here, guys. That's it. Here too, look at where the underlines are. Whenever we have a subtotal, also at the end of the report for another subtotal, get units produced, double underlines to end the report. Double underlines to end the report. All right. Let's take a break here. We'll stop and come back. All right. I did decide to do problem 51 for practice of this production budget. The one we just got done with really isn't what you'll be encountering on your project. So let's look at 51. I've already got the sale units added. This is in the other packet again, guys, sorry. the reason I want to practice this problem is that this desired ending inventory is more like the problem in your project, as well as on the exam. You'll be required to do a production budget report on your exam. So on page 503 then, it talks about the S12 L7, and the company's policy is to have what percent of desired ending? 20. So if you're looking at your Excel project, you could have a cell that has the 20% or a percent number, because then you can cell reference that number to in your formula. So we're going to take this 20% times next quarter's sales to get 440 in this case. And that's what I'd like to have you do too. So for budget purposes, you can do a what-if analysis, change the 20 to 25 or 30, and then automatically complete the report for you. Rather than entering the 20% in the formula 4 times, now I'm going to change the formula 4 times. So try to be creative. Think how you would like it to be or look. Is 440 correct?
Yeah.
Thank you. And we're going to do that same 20% on all of the numbers. 5,600 is 1120. And then,
920.
and now I'm stuck. Because I can't take the total year. I got to get next quarter's sale. And the author says the first quarter of the new year, the quantity level they're expecting to sell is what from the chart? The 900. So 20% of 900 is what? That's 2 times 9. 180, right? It's in the book.
502. Yeah, it's referring back to.
Yeah, 502.
Oh.
Good question. So I'm going to have 3320, 6520, 4780, and what's the year amount? The 180. Very good, Carla. So this number comes flying over to the year column. So then we end up with 13,380 total needs. All right, another problem on this production report is computing the beginning as well. On page 503, what did they tell us the beginning was?
340.
340. Okay, so now I need your attention. On some problems, they're not going to give you the beginning balance. In this one, they did. If I did not give you the beginning balance, what should the number be?
0.
No.
20% of last year's ending.
20% of the first quarter of this year. Is that what you meant? So what is this year's first quarter number?
440.
No. Sales. What is first quarter sales? 800.
20% of that.
So think of a budget last year, fourth quarter, right? Just like we did here, I went to the first quarter of the new year to figure out what the ending balance is. Last year I did the same thing. I estimated 800, right, in the first quarter. So 20% of that is what?
640.
I think 160,
okay, yeah.
right? That's what should be here. But the author decided to give us a bigger number for some reason. So what I'm trying to tell you is, on some problems you will be given the number. On other problems, I'm not going to tell you the beginning number.
Is it always going to be 20% or is it just a desired?
Whatever the problem
percentage?
says. It might be 10, it might be 15, it might be 1, 2%, whatever the problem gives you. That's why this cell is kind of cool. I can type in whatever the percent is and whammo, it's done. Now, for your project, you can have these numbers sitting there, but they're not pretty. What would you do on your Excel workbook to make it look better? Or maybe to hide them? I just kind of,
Separate sheet.
you
Use
could.
the hide function.
Just use the hide function. It's probably the easiest. So hide this additional number stuff that really is not used on the report, but is part of your computation. So think about doing that in Excel, is my recommendation when you do your project. Okay, the rest is, I think, easy. So we just grab these numbers, cell reference down. So 440, 1120, 920, and for the beginning of the year would be what? Yep, Sydney?
340.
340. Perfect. Please subtract, right, the beginning. Oh boy, 29.
No, 218.80.
Say it again, Allison.
2,880.
When I start carrying numbers, it's really hard for me. And the last one is 3.
38.60.
Whew. So as a review, this 20% is finished goods inventory. The 20% is normally, or whatever the percent, it's based usually on quarter sales. And we might have to extend into the new year to get that number. And we are, in some cases, given the beginning, right? Some cases we are not. So look for the differences that we see on each problem that you do. All right. Next report is the materials. Page 462. This is probably the longest report that you'll do, just because it can be a lot of things in it. The exercise or example is example 3. So basically we have two materials. One is the t-shirt itself, one is the ink for the t-shirt. I'm just going to show you the end result. This is the t-shirt schedule, and I think the desired ending here is 10%. 10%. So just like our production, our desired ending raw material, so converting now to raw material or direct material inventory, is on the third budget, which is the material purchases budget. So look for that information when completing this third report. Also notice on this report we had units and cost on this report in dollars. You will be asked that question on the exam. What is on this report? My purchases in units and my cost of purchases. This is the first one where we start to add dollar signs on it. I've even seen dollar signs on the second budget. Is there any dollar signs on the production budget? No. So just because it's a number doesn't mean it's always a dollar sign on it. Here again, it would be very embarrassing to show that report to your production staff and there's dollar signs on a production quantity unit, right? So always look at your reports before you give them to someone. So that's what we're trying to accomplish on this third one. And then they do the ink as well, cost of ink. Let's try our problem 73. Oop, I went too far. Still too far. Oh, finally found it. So how do we start? We have to cell reference our production level units into Schedule 3. Production units from Schedule 2, cell reference to 3 here. I don't have the numbers anymore. For the reference, what number or amounts do I put here in my first row? Order 1.
65.
Now this is the bottom number, right?
78,000.
Yeah, never mind.
Because the 65, I think, is the sale number.
You want the total,
I want the bottom number
the units produced,
produced.
78,000.
Okay. Now that mistake that Sydney just made happens on a test. Students will use the sale number on this report. So a lot of points are on this one. This is also on the test. This report here is also on the test. So Allison, give me the rest. 78.
72,000.
Bart, I wasn't listening.
72,000.
Okay, got it.
80,000.
Good.
80,000 again.
And total?
And 310.
Got it. Thank you. If I could have you then turn to page 514, letter D. So much of this is trying to find it in the problem. So take a look at letter D on page 514. Just read it for a second. What I'm looking for is how much material is needed to make 1 unit.
80.
That's the cost.
3.
Does everybody see the 3? Brianna's correct. It takes 3 pounds or whatever, ounces,
3 units.
3 units, whatever that means. So I'm going to multiply each of these quantity levels by 3. And then multiply them out, right? Using a formula. So go ahead, multiply them out. Again, these are just units. No dollar signs. That look good? And then when you get done with that, please read letter E for the desired ending inventory levels for raw materials. Letter E. Again, for the third budget, we're using raw material ending inventory information. What percent are they looking at? 30. But what is the 30% on?
Next quarter.
Quarter what? Sales. But we're not doing it that way. We're going to do it next quarter's production needs. So I'm going to put a box here. I am going to use 30%. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm basing it upon next quarter's production needs. For whatever reason on this problem and this problem only, they think it should be based on next quarter's sales. I'm not doing that. All right? So here we go. 30. Oh, what's the first number?
65,700.
No, it's the beginning inventory.
Oh.
64,800. Yeah, I'm not good.
So I can move this down, right? To here? Oh, right there. Beginning inventory. So what number do I need here?
64,800.
$72.
30% is what?
The next two would be 72.
72, right?
Even.
No? 30%?
Okay, yeah, okay. Never mind,
I think-
see where I got confused for a second.
That's all right. And it says optimal will end with the same amount of materials as it was in the beginning. So here again, they give it to us at 65.7. That was what we had at the beginning. They're matching it to the ending. So that 65.7 is given to us. On your project problem, it is not. You have to go out to the other months. It'll be months instead of quarters to figure it out. All right, so does anybody have these totals for me, total needs here? With some of these too? Am I right? 298.8?
Yep.
288. 312. 305, 700. What's my number here, guys? For the year?
65,700.
65,700, which just comes over, which gives me a total of 995,700. So now I'm just going to take my totals from the ending become the beginning, which you'll use a cell reference. So 64.8, 72, 72, and what's my ending? Or year, I'm sorry, year. Year.
65,700.
Yep, 65,700 comes over here for my year column. So for production, two, 3, 100. And what does it cost per unit? In letter D. The 80, right? Expensive little part, is it not? So my total cost of purchases, $18,648,000. And then we would just complete the rest, right? So 288. 232, 223. $200. Wouldn't Excel be nice to have right about now? Just saying. This is a tedious, time-consuming task. Guys, am I doing okay here?
Yep.
Looks like the numbers are okay. That finishes it. Remember, like I said, this is a budget, right? And very few times will you ever see cents on any of these. So on your Excel, make sure you format the cell as a whole dollar, right? I don't want to see .00 on every number. Does that make sense?
With the timing of the 80, do you want us to round it, even though it's a whole number?
You mean this
Yeah.
formula here when we're multiplying by 80? It really wouldn't have to be, so no. But
Just if there was change in there?
yeah, then you might want to round it to 0.
Okay.
Okay. Another nice thing, guys, on this schedule is that they do have a split here. So put a column in there and have a space between your
Numbers?
quarters or columns, right? I do want to show on your C now. So we're done with problems today, but I wanted to go into C now. Problem 66. Could I have you turn the page 509? 509. I'm going to expand this up a little bit so you can see it. For problem 66, Allison is the corporation, Allison Manufacturing. They make a jet engine. They're projecting for 5 months the sale levels January, February, March, April, May. Your task for your Excel project is to make the budgets fit the Cengage system. So for your project, we're not doing it by quarter. You are going to do it by month. January, February, March will be the month. The total then will be the total for the quarter. So how it shows here is how your Excel spreadsheet should look. That make sense? I know our Optima is a quarter, 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 and then year. Our problem, though, is month. That flows into Schedule 2, our production budget, also by month, January, February, March, with a total for the quarter. Schedule 3 is sometimes confusing. This is our material purchases budget, but you'll notice that we have two parts, a metal part and a component. Now, here is a suggestion. In your Excel workbook, you may decide to put on one worksheet, the metal on the left, the component on the right. You know what I mean? Or if you do like this scenario where you want January metal component to be together, you can do it this way too. But for me, this seems a little more confusing if I were looking at this report. I would like to see metal on one schedule and then components on a different one. You don't have to create two worksheets. You can if you want to, but keep them on the same worksheet, just split them. Make sense? Any question on that? Let's look at the problem. I don't know why I'm thinking of sitting. Why am I thinking of sitting? My feet are killing me, that's why I'm thinking of sitting. Letter A is finished goods information for your budget production, right? Schedule 2. Letter B is the unit numbers for Schedule 3, your material purchases. So to make one unit, one jet engine takes 10 pounds of metal. It seems kind of small, doesn't it? And 6 components to make a jet engine. And the unit costs are there. Letter B also contains the ending inventory requirement. Now letters C, D, E are all different schedules. We haven't gotten to those yet, but you certainly can use problem 73 if you wanted to start setting it up. Go ahead, you certainly can do those. Letter F. We sell the jet engine for how much? $205. So our selling price is way down in letter F. Letter G is used for the cash budget, which is the last report. Turn your page, please. Do you have 510 showing? It says here there is insufficient cash in the first month. They borrow it, and then they pay it back at interest. The word quarter replaced with the word month. I don't know why they have quarter there. Those all should be months. The interest rate is 12% a year. So if I'm charging interest 12% per year, how much is it per month then? 1, right? Because we're going to borrow it for 1 month. We're short 1 month in our cash account. So just make that note regarding, get rid of the word quarter and replace it with the word month. I think that's all I want to present here, just so that you realize that this is a monthly projection and then 1 quarter worth of information for your Excel worksheets. Okay, I guess that is, oh. Nah, let's wait on that. Let's end here. Let's end here. We'll stop here. Let's see. We are not meeting next week, but if you have questions, I will answer emails next week if you have any, if you are working on something. If not working on anything, enjoy your time off. It's a good halfway point time off, so that's nice to have. Any final questions out in cyber world? Guys, Michaela, Eric, you're good? All right. Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Have a great week. See you on the 26th. Yep.